What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is I, Randy, with RTS Mobile Gaming, bringing you another fantastic Sea of Conquest today. I don't know what I just said, but we are here bringing you another fantastic video. It is going to be great and glorious, and we are talking about Season 4, the Meta 3.0. This is not to be confused with the Anti-Meta 5.0 video, which is coming in about a week. This is the Meta 3.0 video showing you how to make Cutthroat number 1 as you pioneer your way through the seas full of death and destruction. So get excited, here we go. And if you enjoy the content, please feel free to like and subscribe and comment below. Help the YouTube algorithms. Love me long time. Here we go. We'll start with a couple reports. We had a big battle against NOX today here live on stream. Depending on when you watch this video, the stream was on Sunday morning per the usual time, and we had some great battles against NOX. Here in Fighting NOX, you can see that I had a number of different reports where we had some great competition, and I almost lost a few ships, and I was able to survive and come through with a W in both of these large engagements. Okay, and the way this worked is I have found a way to optimize these ships to make them so incredibly tanky while also dealing great balanced damage to really make sure I'm able to massacre the enemies against overwhelming odds. And as you can see here, I got a 35 here, got a 31 here, got a 32, got a 34, got a 36. All these people were attacking me at the same time. I was kind of kiting them around a little bit, moving in and out of the gate area, and we had a lot of fighting. And in general, this is how the build performed. Once we go through the stats here, we'll jump into the actual detailed ship-by-ship breakdown, but let's start with this. So, first, we have the Orichi Strategic Damage Ship. Griffin in the lead with top damage there at 32 million. The Orichi itself at a little bit over 30 million damage. This is really tremendous. This is using the head-on wallop skill, which means when I deal strategic damage to an enemy and they are in the healthy rating, which means more than half health, they will take a bonus strategic damage trigger from the head-on wallop. It's really, really fantastic, and it snowballs very nicely with the strategic build, especially with Boa and Griffin, because they are activating so many strategic damage instances. Okay? Next, we have the artillery ship here. Now, this has historically been the ship that dies the fastest. It always pulls a ton of aggro and dies very quickly. What we've done here is we have taken a splash damage build, and we have removed the third damage hero off of this ship to add in some support utility. The support utility is going to make my artillery ship live a little bit longer, deal a little bit less damage, which means it's going to pull less aggro and get less focus fire. It still took damage, as you can see. It was one of the higher damage receiving ships in this fleet. However, because of how tanky it was and the amount of healing I was able to do, I was able to keep this thing alive. Okay? That is the artillery build. Next, we have the Stormbringer. This is kind of the heal hybrid right now. It is focusing very hard. There's no crit on this build. This is an entirely attack percentage and damage-based build. What we have here is, again, a support hero using a Constitution trinket in Cordelia as the ship's captain. Then we have Tanaka and Adeline bringing up the rear here, dealing solid damage while applying a lot of damage over time debuffs and things like that, and allowing me to get a lot of rage regen for Cordelia and pump out healing. So we have turned again what is often a ship that gets killed first, the Stormbringer, into a very tanky ship that still does great damage. And finally, the hero of this build, the hero of the Meta 3.0, because the Meta is basically understood in Sea of Conquest as a cutthroat focused build. This is the focus damage for this setup, and it does not disappoint. It did more than 50% damage higher than the strategic ship, which is also tremendous. Okay, so we had great cutthroat damage here, back to back to back, dominating amounts of damage, and really was fantastic. Now, we have low damage from the Warhammer itself because we are using the Cost of Strength Ultimate, which reduces the enemy's armor. Okay, and that is how the build works. Let me open up a second report here really quick. We're just going to skim it for 5 seconds to show you the consistency, and then I'm going to jump to the ship-by-ship breakdown. Here again, tremendous damage, very actually on par damage between strategic and artillery. Okay, so this is great strategic damage. Keep in mind, artillery only has 2 damage heroes on this ship. The third hero is support. So the fact that this artillery build was able to survive long enough, it took lower damage because it wasn't doing as much damage, wasn't pulling as much aggro as some of these other ships, but it still put out more than enough damage to be a massive contender and contributor to the build. Then we have 13 million healing from Cordelia. Just absolute monster here. Okay, and then we have the Cutthroat build again coming in the lead because that is what we are focusing on. Let's take a look at this ship by ship breakdown. Hopefully this will help you understand. And again, if you enjoy this content, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment below and help the YouTube algorithm love me even more. Currently only loves me a little bit. So, the flagship, Ahab, Obi, and Magnus. If you don't have Obi or Magnus, you can substitute Obi with Delilah or Cursed Ed. I love using Delilah on this ship because I do a lot of strategic damage here, and having Delilah on the ship will help me do more strategic damage as well as activate my shields faster. Okay? If you don't have Magnus, you can replace Magnus with Armstrong. Armstrong is another great, they renamed her. Agnes is another great hero. She is like a blue version of Magnus. She is obviously nowhere near as strong as Magnus, but she is not too far off. And if you really want, you can also put Django in there for some rage generation. So, like I said, I would suggest either Delilah with Django or Delilah with Armstrong, also known as Agnes now, if you don't have Magnus and Obi. Okay? For the ship parts, you can use 3 different ship sets if you'd like. I highly recommend the Sacred Guardian because it gives good crit resistance, HP, armor, and shielding, as well as aggro generation. But if you don't have this, you can benefit by replacing the attack percentage here with a critical resistance stat on a level 21 Yamata figurehead. Okay, and you can still put on a level 25 Yamata crit resistance sail. So, by switching from the Guardian set to Yamata set, you can actually increase your crit resistance massively, get yourself over 100% critical resistance, and have the Yamata benefit, the Yamata bonus, which is also incredibly tanky. And if you don't want to run either of these, you can always run the good old Sovereign of the Sea set with a level 21 sail for HP or armor, and that way you can give yourself a good balance of HP to boost Ahab's shielding dramatically. Okay? Those are my recommended ship sets. For the Orichi, now you don't have to have a legendary, and if you have a purple, I actually recommend most of the time that you use the Fearless Princess instead of a purple Orichi. But if you have the legendary Orichi, Head on a Wallop is a great skill to have because it's going to contribute to a lot of damage from the ship, as you saw in both of those combat breakdowns. The ship did great damage. Okay? Griffin, Boa, and Molly. This is the setup you want on your Orichi. If you don't have Boa, that is okay. Because there are some other heroes in the mix now. Let me pull up the heroes themselves. There are some other strategic heroes that you can equip. You could, in theory, put Molly as your first mate if you don't have Boa. And you could use the new hero, who I don't have yet, Letitia Miller. Letitia Miller is a fantastic gunner. She does tremendous damage. She would actually be an upgrade to the build I have now. She's a little bit better than Molly. But I have Molly at, whatever, 6, 7 stars. What do I have her at? Oh, wow, I have Molly at 10 stars. And I have Letitia Miller at 0 stars. Therefore, Molly is going to be the one for me. But again, if you do have Letitia Miller, once she hits the 6-star mark, she's going to be a little bit better than Molly, okay? You don't have to have her at 10 stars, but you definitely want her at 6 stars. She's going to be very beneficial for your ship, and she's going to synergize really well with Griffin and with the Head on Wallop Ultimate, all right? And lastly, if you also don't want to put Molly in the first mate slot, you could put Delilah in that slot. Delilah is a strong hero. She does do good damage, and she does apply strategic. She does do bonus strategic damage for your ship. She applies a strategic vulnerability to the enemy ship, and she will boost the rage generation for Griffin and your other heroes for the first 12 seconds of the fight. So Delilah is actually very strong as a first mate if you don't have these other heroes, okay? For the trinkets themselves, you are going to want to run double crit trinkets. Whether you have the crit trinket on the first mate and the gunner, or on Griffin and the first mate, or whatever combination in between, is entirely up to you. but you are definitely going to want 2 critical trinkets and minimum 1 on this build. That way you can run crit damage on the figurehead. If you only have 1 crit trinket, or maybe you have no crit trinkets, you are going to run with a critical rate on your figurehead, because you're going to need that in order to take advantage of the large crits that Griffin will be dealing. Okay? But optimally, ideally, you would like 2 crit trinkets so you could focus on crit damage, and that is the key. Blade of Freedom is a recommended set for this ship. The Goddess Sajit, this is really interesting. So we have taken a ship that has historically been the ship that dies first, and we have turned it into this weird hybrid that does huge damage, but also has good survivability and is a support for the whole fleet. Both Ophelia and Wanda apply good support buffs to the entire fleet, while they also give buffs to Sharky. And Sharky paired with the splash damage ultimate new age ammunition, or maybe you just have shotgun weapons on the ship, which is also totally fine. I highly recommend using this skill with Sharky, because it is going to, well, Sharky himself is going to generate a ton of basic attacks, and it's going to be very, very powerful. Because I'm using Wanda on here, I am able to equip the Fury of the Storm set, even though it's extra squishy. And this is going to allow me to apply armor penetration to the enemy ships, okay? So Wanda's going to help my artillery ship live longer, but in general, since I can live longer and I'm a little bit tankier, I'm able to do more with my ship parts and not run Queen of Revenge, which is a good set. But Queen of Revenge does not give damage bonuses to the basic attack. So, in order to get a ship that does almost as much damage as Sharky, you want to run Blade of Freedom or Fury of the Storm. On to the next. Oh, actually, let's talk about Wanda real quick. So, you don't have to run Wanda here. There are a few substitutes for Wanda if you don't want to run this setup. I have run, okay, on my other character with Ricky, and I've run on this character with Key Landing in that gunner slot. Now, Key Landing is great. She does good damage. She's going to cause your ship to generate more aggro because she is a big damage dealer. And Ricky is even better than Key Landing. Ricky is absolutely insane. He is incredibly powerful. And if you have a Ricky that is 6 stars, you may consider not putting Wanda on the artillery ship. What you are going to run into is an artillery ship that does even more damage than I do currently, and has lower survivability, and gets focus fired in every fight. In that case, you may want to switch to the Queen of Revenge or even a Sovereign of the Sea set, because you are going to need that extra survivability to live. It's entirely up to you based on the heroes you have, but those are some suggestions. You can run Ricky or a Key Landing in the gunner spot if you don't want to run Wanda. In that case, I would say you need to put Wanda on your Stormbringer and drop Adeline. Unfortunately, that's how it ends up. You either have Cordelia and Wanda together, or you have them separate with Wanda on the artillery ship. That's really about the only place you're going to put her. You could, in theory, put Wanda on the flagship instead of Magnus. Wanda will still do rage generation. She'll still give these ships her attack buff. So you could potentially do that if you wanted and try and focus on higher damage without Magnus or Agnes / Armstrong on the ship. It's up to you. I'm just telling you some variations in case you don't have the same heroes and trinkets I have, okay? For the Stormbringer, this is the Cordelia, Tanaka, Adeline combo. You definitely want one that has Vargur's Fury for this setup, but you could also have one that has a severe impact, which is going to, again, lower the impact on the enemy ships or lower their armor, depending on whether the drowning or burning buff procs first. And that's a really powerful buff. I am playing around with that on my other character, okay? I do have the severe impact ultimate instead of Vargur's Fury, but Vargur's Fury is going to really help Cordelia do a ton of healing. She is going to generate an incredible amount of rage, as you saw, disgusting amounts of healing from that setup. And then Tanaka and Adeline, anyways, they do great damage. So you can run this setup with Blade of Freedom. You don't have to have crit stats. I'm not using any crit stats on this ship, as you can see. Using pure attack percentage and damage percentage trinkets on Tanaka and Adeline. And in fact, I may decide to take off Adeline's trinket and put on a Chain Bombs, because Chain Bombs is going to give damage bonuses to both to both Tanaka and Adeline. Where is it? So you could put on chain bombs instead of Adeline's sword, give bonus damage to Lester, and still do good damage for Adeline. It's up to you. I mean, I keep saying Lester. I mean Tanaka. Okay? But Blade of Freedom is the best. You could also run Fury of the Storm on this ship if you wanted, but of course that means you're leaning a little bit more into the crit range, and that will cause you to do debuffs on the enemy and lower their armor. Cutthroat. Whew, I've been talking about a mile a minute. If you're still here, we're at 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear it. 15 minutes, Randy. I want to know. Anyways, here we go. With the Warhammer, this is going to be key. If you are using the cost of strength skill on Warhammer, which is my favorite skill on the Warhammer currently, I highly recommend you use Blade of Freedom to get the impact to help reduce the armor even further. I also really dislike the Cutthroat ship set itself, and I highly recommend using Blade of Freedom over the Cutthroat ship set, if I can even find the stupid thing. I don't even know where it is. I think I dissolved it. Oh god, what is it? Requiescence of the Black? Oh geez. Requiescence of the Black. I dislike this ship set. Not only does it not give you the attack and the impact that you want to make this build successful, this is a stacking debuff on the enemy that only lasts for 3 seconds. Yes, you can in theory give the enemy bonus 40% cutthroat damage taken. That's if you can get to 5 stacks and the stacks fall off after 3 seconds. It's going to be very challenging for you to maintain more than 1, 2, maybe 3 stacks now and then on the Warhammer with this particular setup. Okay? It's going to be very challenging to get above the average 1 to 2 stacks, which means Blade of Freedom is going to be way, way better. So I highly recommend Blade of Freedom. You can also use Fury of the Storm, but the nice thing about Blade of Freedom, since you're probably using a Bones Trinket and an Onimusha Trinket, is you can then run critical damage on the figurehead, giving you even more damage output on this ship. My crit damage is 264%, crit rate at 105.5, so I am hitting like a Mack truck all day long. If you only have 1 crit trinket, that is okay. You will then put on a critical rate figurehead and make up the balance. You always want to be, I'd say, over 90% crit rate on the Cutthroat build. Try not to drop below it, and keep in mind that people will have critical resistance. So if you're only running 50 or 60% crit rate, and someone else is running 30 or 40% crit resistance, you are going to have a hard time landing crits on them, okay? So Blade of Freedom is the best. Bones, Onimusha, and Luna. Now, there are 2 other heroes to talk about here, okay? There is, of course, Kojo. If you don't have Onimusha, Kojo is still a strong hero with all of this crit damage. He is going to be doing great damage. He will actually probably out-damage Bones on occasion. He does a good job, as much as it pains me to say that. Kojo will do a good job if you don't have Onimusha, but Onimusha is best in slot because he will give your entire ship bonus crit rate and crit damage, okay? But Kojo is a substitute if you don't have Onimusha. Kojo is also very strong. Luna is fantastic. I love Luna, but if you don't have a great Luna, you can also run the brand new hero that just came out, if I can find her, Margaret. Margaret is super interesting. Has a lot of similarities to Luna. She's like a mixture of Luna and Kojo with a little bit lower damage, a little bit higher utility. She is similar to Kojo in the fact that she does a good cutthroat damage attack, and this is level 1, but she does almost the same amount of ultimate damage as Kojo does, okay? And she has armor penetration as well, same as Kojo, but she doesn't have the secondary damage ability that Kojo has that makes him do even more damage. Instead of having a secondary damage ability, she has the ability to debuff the enemy and make them receive more cutthroat damage for 3 seconds, okay? She will also, which is similar to Cutthroat set, right? See the funny similarities there. She will also cause the target ship to have higher aggro while reducing the aggro on the Cutthroat ship. And her 4th skill is going to give you a stacking, okay? A stacking attack bonus when you deal critical strikes. So when she is fully leveled up, you could see, I believe it's 18% total attack. Let's actually open her up. She's really good. She could fit in the first mate or the gunner slot because she's a jack of all trades. The one thing to know, if you do put her in the first mate slot, she may not activate Onimusha's trinket. I believe you have to actually have a first mate title to trigger the trinket. Even if she's in that particular slot, she's a jack of all trades. That is unconfirmed. That is a guess. and I have not been able to verify it entirely because when you're in combat, it does not show the buffs on the ship from Onimusha's trinket. I can't tell if it's triggering or not. Yes, okay, so at max level, you can have 15% bonus attack. You can debuff the enemy ship to take 10% more damage. You can increase their aggro by 50 and lower your own aggro by 50. And deal, again, very similar damage to Kojo. A little bit less because he has another damage ability, but very similar damage and form to Kojo, where she hits the target in the ship, the target ship in the enemy's fleet that has the lowest HP, very similar to Kojo and Luna. So they can all be together, okay? And in fact, let's talk about that for a second. Let's just say you don't have a Bones. Let's say maybe you have a 2-star Bones. I don't know. Maybe you have Onimusha and Luna. Or maybe you have Margaret as your captain. Okay? Because she's going to do focus fire. She's going to give support to the ship similar to Bones. Probably a little bit lower damage than Bones. But she is going to provide good utility for the ship. You could have Kojo in the first mate slot. Okay? He is going to also focus fire the lowest HP ship. And you could have Luna in the gunner slot, who is also going to focus a ship with low HP in the enemy fleet. All three of these people will focus fire the same target, most likely, depending on the ship's HP. And that will mean that those three heroes are a great alternative if you don't have Bones and Onimusha, okay? So, those are the variations of the build here. I think I've talked through all the different options if you are free to play or mid-level spender or a fellow whale or an upper-level kraken, whatever it is, these are the options for you today. If you have enjoyed this Meta 3.0 video, feel free to like and subscribe. Randy.